So the three biggest markets for us for the EBRD in 2024 were Turkey with something like 2.6 billion of investment, Ukraine, euros, Ukraine 2.4 billion of there also money invested, and Egypt around 1.5 billion, and the sectors. I mean, in the three countries, the private sector has been keen in Turkey. It's almost only private sector, so more than 90% of the investment in the private sector, in businesses. In Ukraine, it's 58% of our investment in the private sector, and in Egypt, it's also clearly a large part, I think 80% of the investment in the private sector. And in Egypt, we have a strong focus on energy with investment in renewable, in the development of the grid, in infrastructure, with development of PPPs. For example, we had very interesting project in dry port, to develop logistics in the country, but also water, desalinization project. PPP on desalinization are important project for us, and support to SMEs, women in business and so forth through the banking sector. We have a lot of bank with which we partner in Egypt, and we provide them credit line, and then they use it to support SMEs and private businesses.
How interested are you to participate in the reconstruction of Gaza, Lebanon, Syria after the end of the war?
So I think the situation of the three countries is very different. Lebanon is a country in which we have invested quite a lot, and we keep some activity in Lebanon. Even in the last few years, we had some trade finance that we continued to do, and targeted support to SMEs, venture capital, so startups that we supported. So we stand ready to step up. I think we are very positive about the new government, and we hope that this new government will be able to engage with discussion with the IMF and to engage on a clear reform agenda, and then it will give us a capacity to step up our support in Lebanon, particularly, for example, on the energy sector. There are huge shortage of energy, so that's an area where we have done some work, and we would be happy to provide some support, but it needs to be part of a big broader reform agenda. On Syria, it's a very different situation because Syria is not a member of the bank, and we are still at very early stage of the political change, and we need to see how the situation evolves. But in principle, Syria is in a region in which the EBRD can invest. So if there is some interest, the country can become a shareholder. We need then to see the political condition, institutional setup, and so forth before we start investing. But it's a country with huge needs and huge potential. And West Bank and Gaza. West Bank, we've continued to invest, and we invested last year 77 million euros in support of the private sector. We also invested some equity in Bank of Palestine, or supported pharmaceutical companies and so forth. So we continued our activity targeted to the private sector. We not invested in Gaza. For the time being, it's more an issue of humanitarian reconstruction and so forth. And
the reconstruction. So would you be interested to participate in that in any way?
If our shareholder ask us, it will depend on the setup and how the political situation and so forth. But it will be subject to our. We would need a lot of donor funding to do that, because I think that as a bank, providing lending will be limited capacity because of the capacity to repay. So